welcome all of you on this very, very special occasion. We are trying to offer our greetings, our respects, our felicitations to Sri Aurobindo on her 150th anniversary. And through the verses and couplets of Sant Kabir. Sant Kabir lived 400 years before the birth of Sri Aurobindo in the 15th century in Varanasi, the holy city of India. And quite amazingly, Sri Aurobindo has written extensively about Kabir. And in the process of studying Sri Aurobindo recently, I was amazed what extraordinary things he said about him. And I'm going to read you a few passages. And in the process, I thought it'll be much better if later on in October or so in Savitri Bhavan, we did a seminar on Sri Aurobindo and Kabir together. Because there's extraordinary parallels between these two great men, two great sages. They're very different from each other. Very different. And yet they touch the divine in a similar way and in a remarkable way. Both are great poets. Now, some of you do know about Kabir. I've presented him here a few times in Auroville, and some of you already know. He's probably the most well-known poet of Hindi in India, North India. And anybody who studied in North India, in Himachal or Madhya Pradesh or Uttar Pradesh or Rajasthan or Punjab or any part of North India, they study him in school, as I did as a student in grade 7, 8, 9. But it takes some time to understand the depth of this great man. So I rediscovered him. Actually rediscovered him after about 25 years later at the age of 36 in Canada, in the mountains of Canada, in British Columbia. Some of you do know I have lived in Canada for a long time. And so it was an extraordinary discovery for me. And I feel there are three influences in my life, if I may quickly share with you, because they're very important to what we're going to do today. There are three influences in my life. I'm a nuclear physicist by training. So one of the great men I admire very much is Albert Einstein. He was not only a great scientist, he was a great visionary, a pacifist, a great mystic. And through him, I discovered Sri Aurobindo. Quite extraordinary. And through Sri Aurobindo, I discovered Kabir. So these three men, at different time periods of history, very different backgrounds, have really been very influential in my thinking, my sense of poetry, my sense of what is spiritual insights and spiritual search. So Kabir is extraordinary in this triad because he did not know how to read and write. Most people don't know this. He could not read and write. So the songs that are attributed to him, and there are literally thousands of them, songs and couplets that are attributed to Kabir, they were not written by him. He sang them, he composed them, he shared them, and then fortunately over the years people wrote it down. And there are many debates that are they really his or somebody else's? This man who did not know how to read and write, there are at least 100 people who have done their PhD on him in India. Okay, and the number is growing all the time. There are at least 100 people who have done their PhD, and they debate where was he born, when was he born, was he really there, and so on and so on. So, but these debates continue. But what touches me deeply is what is said in his name. What did he say? What is the message? And sometimes they're very simple. He said a lot of couplets, dohas, and what he called Sakhis. Sakhis, witness to truth. Sakshi, I'm a witness to truth. And so he said this, and they're simple. And then I discovered in the process of presenting him in many countries, at least 36 countries of the world. In the process of presenting him, I discovered that many countries, many languages have the tradition of writing couplets. And one of my friends, who I hope will be here, she has translated Kabir based on my English translations into Chinese. And she says China has a very long and rich tradition of writing couplets. And that tradition continues to this day. So there are other languages as well, French, English, Russian. So writing couplets. So Kabir is known mostly for his couplets. And also these couplets are easy to quote, easy to remember. And there is a simplicity. It's almost like a mathematical equation. And there's so much in it, as I will share with you presently. So this is Kabir lived sometime in the 15th century for about 60 years or so in Varanasi. He was a weaver. And people debate, was he Muslim? Was he Hindu? And he says, Hindu to main hu nahi, Musalman bhi nahi. I'm not a Hindu, not a Muslim. He was beyond these things. He was beyond these labels, even though we all keep putting labels on him. And there's many stories. What is he? Where was he? How did he become what he became? Because he did not know how to read and write. And so many pundits, Brahmins especially, in the holy city of Varanasi, ridiculed him. They said, how can this man speak of Brahma Jnana, spiritual knowledge, when he has never read Upanishads or Vedas or Bhagavad Gita? How could he talk about it? And he in turn made fun of them. He made fun of them. He said, Likha likhi ki hai nahi, are dekha dekhi ki baat. It's not a matter of writing and reading. It is opening your eye. That is the real sense of knowledge. लिखा लिखी की है नहीं, अरे देखा देखी की बात, दुल्हा को दुल्हन मिल गयो, अरे फीकी पड़ी बारात. When the bride is in the arms of her lover, who gives a damn about the wedding party? So he was talking about the real essence of spiritual journey is the union of the lover, the beloved and the lover, and the rest is just having fun. The Bharati log to fun ke liye aate. So he made fun of the Brahmins and say, "Main kehta aankhan ki dekhi." He says, "I say only what I've seen with my own eyes. You keep quoting the books." "Main kehta aankhan ki dekhi, tu kehta pothi ki lekhi. Main kehta sirja banhari, tu rakhe aur rujha gaye. I say what I have seen with my own eyes. You keep quoting the books. I say he's everywhere, but you keep hiding in the scriptures. Well, how can our paths cross? So he said, invoking the Brahmins. And I don't know how many of you have ever been to Varanasi. It's a holy city with a lot of Brahmins and a lot of Pandits, a lot of very great scholars. And so to them, he's a great provocation. A person like Kabir is a provocation. So Kabir spoke of love. That's why today our presentation is about really saying about a celebration of love. So here, I quote to you many of his poems, and then I have three other friends here who are part of our team. For the last year or two, we have been trying to translate Kabir into 10 languages, 10 European and Asian languages. It's quite a challenge, quite a work. So we have today 3 presentations, 2 in German, and 1 in Italian, and hopefully also in Chinese. Our friend Anandi, I hope, will be here. She's currently preoccupied. So let's hope that 3 presentations. I'll give you a little flavor of what it means to see the same language in different, same idea expressed in different languages. Now, Kabir, as I said, wrote in very rustic Hindi. He was not an educated man. He was a weaver, outside, outcast, low caste, marginalized at the corner of at the very lowest rung of the society. And he was treated like this. So his language is not sophisticated, but he saw the world around him with beauty, with grandeur, and he saw everything was just full of beauty. And he says this. He says, "Nainan ki karun kothari, nainan ki karun kothari, putli plang bichaun. I'll make my eyes into a bridal chamber. I'll make my eyes into a bridal chamber. In the pupil of my eye, I will lay the bridal bed. I'll use my eyelashes like silken curtains. And there, I will endear my beloved." Very sensuous images. "Nainan ki karum kotri, putli plang bichaun. नैनन की करूं कोठरी, पुतली पलंग बिछाऊं, पलकन की चिकदारी के, पलकन की चिकदारी के, पिया को ले रिझाऊं, पिया को ले रिझाऊं. I'll endear my beloved. I'll make my eyes into a bridal chamber. In the pupil of my eye, I'll lay the bridal bed. I'll use my eyelashes like silken curtains, and there I'll endear my beloved. Then Kabir, again and again, his whole, I call him, his poems are really love poems, but love, divine love, and not love for a person, for a thing, or an idea, or a country. Divine love encompasses everything. And again, he provokes people. He's a radical man, and that's why 500 years later, he's so much loved and sung all over the country, all over the world increasingly. A few years ago, 4 years ago, I was in Alabama, in USA, presenting Kabir in a black church. Black people, there was no white person in the audience, about 300 black people. And after it was over, the 3 people came to the front to thank me. He said, "Sir, Professor, we feel that Kabir could be our prophet." I said, he's prophet of everybody. He inspires everybody. So here, Kabira ye ghar prem ka, Kabira ye ghar prem ka, khala ka ghar nahi. So the abode of my beloved is a temple of love. It is not a house of pleasure. Kabira ye ghar prem ka, khala ka ghar nahi. कबीरा ये घर प्रेम का, खाला का घर नाही, शीश उतारे हथि करी, सो पैसे घर माही. Only he who abandons his ego can dare to enter here. The house of my beloved, the temple is a temple of love. It's not a house of pleasure. Only he who abandons his ego can dare to enter here. Kabira ye ghar prem ka, Khala ka ghar nahi. These are, I call my translations not translations, they're transcreations. Okay? And there's a little distinction. I know some people, academic people, get very stuck. They're always caught in an academic straitjacket. So I say my translations are transcreations. They are like wearing a Sufi master's robe. They flow, they fly. That's how they reach other people. Otherwise, nobody will understand them. And so there is a not literal translation. Poetry is not translated literally, should not be. Tagore translated his own poetry, Gitanjali himself, and it's very different from his Bengali Bengali original. Very different. So here, so he says, Nainan antar avatu, Nainan antar avatu, Tehu naina japehu. Oh, my beloved, come into my eyes. Oh, my beloved, come into my eyes. And the moment you come, I'll lower my eyelids. So you won't look at another. And I will look only at you. Nainana antar avatu, tehu naina japehu. Nainana antar avatu, tehu naina japehu. Na main dekhun kisi aur ko, na tujhe dekhan dehu. I will look only at you, and I won't let you see another. Such possessive, sensuous, possessive. Nainan antar avatu, tehu naina japehu, na main dekhun kisi aur ko, na tujhe dekhan dehu. So another, again, he says, I write letters to my beloved. He did not know how to write, but he says, I write letters. Yeah? He did not know. I say, what an incredible way to say, I write letters. He did not know how to write letters. So I write letters to my beloved as though she lived far in another land. Oh, how I forget that she lives here, in my eyes, in my heart, receiving messages of my love at all times. So he says, Priyatam ko patiyan likhu, Priyatam ko patiyan likhu, jo koi hoye videsh, as though he lived far in another land. Priyatam ko patiyan likhu, jo koi hoye videsh, man mein, tan mein, nainan mein, taako kaha sandesh. He's here, in my eyes, in my heart, receiving messages of my love at all times. Then this one, some of these are very beautiful. There's absolutely, if you are a poet, or if you are interested in poetry, there's absolutely nothing better in Hindi has been written in poetry. So incredible beauty, the language, man who did not know the language at all. and and this word lali, he uses it 5 times in a different meaning each time. Lali mere lalaki, jit dekhun tit lal. The light of my beloved is spread everywhere. The light of my beloved is spread everywhere. When I went searching for it, I too become part of that light. Lali mere lalaki, jit dekhun tit lal. Lali dekhan मैं भी हो गई लाल, मैं भी हो गई लाल, लाली मेरे लाल की, जित देखूं तित लाल, लाली देखन मैं भी हो गई लाल. It's a great challenge to translate these into any language. And so these people who you will hear soon in German, Italian, and possibly Chinese, and so they were translating based on my English translations, and which in turn was gone through many changes. So he says, so lali mere lal ki, the light of my beloved is spread everywhere. When I went searching for it, I too became part of that light. Lali mere lal ki, jit dekhun tit lal. Lali dekhan मैं भी हो गई लाल, मैं भी हो गई लाल. Then Kabir, as I said, he was a weaver. So all around him were all people, lowly people who were marginalized in the society, potters, people who took ground for oil, tail, and other people, scavengers. He drew examples from them in order to write his poetry. So he says, Kabira hariras yupiya. So imbued am I with the love of my beloved that all my doubts are gone forever. So imbued am I with the love of my beloved that all my doubts are gone forever. A potter's bowl, once baked in the fire, is not turned on the wheel again. Just beautiful example. A potter's bowl, you can turn it, you can mold it for so long it's not baked. But once it's baked, you can't do anything with it. And then it doesn't go on the wheel of life. It's finished. He says, I'm finished. I'm baked. So he says, Kabira Hari Ras Yupiya. Hari Ras. Hari is God's name, but he says Hari is just a name. He did not believe in anything, any Saguna God, any God with special specific features. Everything was a God for him. So, but he often uses the word Hari or Ram. But he says, my Ram is not the king of Ayodhya. He's not the son of Dasharatha. He's just a name. Just a name. And so some translator in California trying to say Hari Ras, he means Hari's liquor. That's how it's translated. Hari. So Hari Ras Yun Piya. So Kabira Hari Ras Yun Piya. Ki baki rahi na thak. I'm so imbued am I with the love of God, the love of my beloved, that all my ambivalence is gone forever. A potter's bowl, once baked in the fire, is not turned on the wheel again. Then this one, very famous, well quoted all the time, very often quoted. And it shows, he talks about his own journey as a spiritual seeker. And so much doubt, fear, anxiety, wonder, is it real? Is it what I'm searching, is it real? Is it just an illusion? So he says, Jin khoja, tin paya. He says, the pearl is deep in the water. Dive if you seek. The pearl is deep in the water. Dive if you seek. Oh, my friends, I was a scared old woman. I just sat at the shore, empty-handed. So fearful. He says, I was so fearful. Didn't know. Is it really there? Should I dive? Will I get drowned? What would happen to me? So he talks. So, Jin khoja, tin paya, gehre pani pait. Jin khoja, tin paya, gehre pani pait. मैं बोरी बोरन डरी, रही किनारे बैठ. I was a scared old woman. I just sat at the shore, empty-handed. So this one of the most famous pieces of poetry ever written in any language. And let me explain to you, and then we'll move on. He uses the word called manka 5 times. It has 2 different meanings. One is the manka is beads in a rosary. That's called manka. It also means something belonging to the heart. Our Prime Minister in India, he has a man ki baat, heart, the talk of the heart. He has it every month. So manka has 2 meanings. One means a bead in the rosary, and second, something belonging to the heart. So he uses it 5 times with a different meaning. And then the second word is pair. Pair means moving the beads, turning the beads. And it also means wrinkles in the heart. So somebody he's not trustworthy. He's got something groovy going on in his head. Something not trustworthy. So the 2 words. So he uses it 5 times. It's one of the most beautiful pieces ever written in poetry. Listen to this. Manaka pherat yug bhaya, gaya na manaka pher. Manaka pherat yug bhaya, gaya na manaka pher. Karaka manaka chandike. Are manaka pher. Amazing. He says, for years you've been moving the beads in your hand. For years you've been moving the beads in your hand, yet nothing has moved in your heart. That's why Kabir is a great radical poet. And he says this again and again. It provokes people. He says, for years you've been moving the beads in your hand, yet nothing has moved in your heart. Oh, my friend, leave aside the beads. Open your hands. Let the heart turn. Let the heart turn. So, manaka pherat yug bhaya, gaya na manaka pher. Karaka manaka chandike. Are manaka pher. Manaka pher. Absolutely exquisite piece of poetry. And then I'll just share 3 more, and then we'll invite other people. जब मैं था तब तू नहीं. When my ego was there, your face was hidden from me. जब मैं था तब तू नहीं, अब तू है तो मैं नहीं. Now that you are here, all is my ego, I am gone, I'm disappeared. जब मैं था तब तू नहीं, अब तू है तो मैं नहीं. अरे प्रेम गली अति सांकरी, इसमें दो न समाही. This path of love is much too narrow. 2 cannot walk here, only 1. जब मैं था तब तू नहीं, अब तू है तो मैं नहीं. प्रेम गले अति सांकरी, इसमें दो न समाही. There is a very beautiful Sufi story. Because Kabir is loved by the Sufis. He's loved by everybody. Loved by the Sikhs, loved by the Muslims, the Hindus, Marxists. Everybody says he's ours, he's great. So it's a Sufi story. There is a lover. The lover knocks at the door of the beloved. And she says, who's there? And he says, it's me. And the door is closed. And he's wondering, what happened? So he's asking here and there, and a year later he comes back again. And so he knocks at the door again, and she says again, who's there? And he said, it's you. And the door is open. So there, tu karata tu bhaya, mujh pe rahi na hu. When my ego was there, your face was hidden from me. Now that I see you, all I see is you and you and you. And the path of love is much too narrow. 2 cannot walk here. Only 1. जब मैं था तब तू नहीं, अब तू है तो मैं नहीं. अरे प्रेम गली अति सांकरी, इसमें दो न समाही. Then this pehle I shared it with you. Let me share it again. मैं कहता, it's very important because Kabir speaks a real rich personal spiritual experience. That's what beckons him to all of us. That's what Sri Aurobindo talks about him, the great divine lover. He calls him the great divine lover. And he's written so much about him in his synthesis of yoga. And extraordinary, amazing. So he said, tu karata tu bhaya, mujh mein rahi na hu. Bari pheri bali gai, jit dekhu tu titu. Calling your name, I forgot my old. Now all I see is you and you and you. Tu karata tu bhaya, mujh mein rahi na hu. Bari pheri bali gai, jit dekhu titu. Everywhere I see is you and you and you. Yeah, this again, Nanan antara avatu, this is very important, a very beautiful, again possessive. Nanan antara, oh my beloved, come into my eyes. The moment you enter, I'll lower my eyelids so you won't look at another, and I will look only at you. Nanan antara avatu, tehu nain japehu, na main dekhun kisi aur ko, na tujhe dekhan dehu, na tujhe dekhan dehu, na tujhe dekhan dehu. So these are some of the pieces. I will come back to you, but now I introduce you three other people who have been working with me, a wonderful team of mine, ours, together. Now I invite Ben. Ben has been here in Auroville for the last several years, very dear friend of mine, and we've been working together and present. And he's deeply moved by Kabir. Will share with you some few pieces of Kabir as translated by him, transcreated by him, based on my English translations into German.
So let's only say hello. I want to start with reading one quote by another giant, which is our beloved Sri Aurobindo. The song of these bhaktas, Kabir and others, are very much in a manner and style that might be called the hieratic primitive, that is a priestly primitive way, like a picture, all in intense line, but only 2 or 3 essential lines at a time. The only color is the hue of a single and very simple, strong spiritual idea or emotion or experience. That's Sri Aurobindo about Kabir. And then when I found myself gathering some words that I might say about my relation to Kabir and the very personal emotions about reading and perceiving such poetry, I saw that it's a bit in vain, and it shall be washed away by the torrents of love, as Kabir wrote. And then I was reminded of something more direct and individual, because this kind of poetry is very highly individual, grasping a spark of that which is very universal. So Kabir was surely not someone who would follow any system. He was absolutely non-dogmatic. And you cannot find such people singing songs that everybody sings. But then I was reminded of having this book just from Varanasi, because 2 years ago we took the train up, and then when I honestly, loving India already so much since 12 years, but then only 2 years ago we bathed into the waters of Gangama, and sitting at the guts of Benares, having the song of Kabir in mind and hearing the song of the people walking down the little lane singing, "Truth is God, God is truth, Ram Ram Satya Hai." It was very wonderful. And I imagined how Kabir must have composed, not even reading and writing, but composing them very much more from the heart than some of the academic literature that he criticizes so harshly might have ever been able to. Right now, let's go into those translations. I opened one relation to what we have here, Mother and Sri Aurobindo, because there are those qualities around the Matrimandya, the petals of the Matrimandya. They depict 12 qualities of the soul in its dynamic becoming, and we all have some spark of that. And in my opinion, they all rely on one of those qualities. They are based on sincerity. And this is something like our very personal identity, I-ness, individuality, which must be reflecting and also singing that song loud out of the dynamic universal truth and the light. And this is what can be found in such poetry for me. Although Sri Aurobindo, for example, he mentions so often the word ineffable, so it is actually not nameable what is perceived there. But then the poet is desperately in love with that what he perceives, so he must give it a name and a form, out of infinity into the finite. And before we start, the last little quote again by Sri Aurobindo, because that is another political aspect of this Kabir, which was such a figure and of his time, and Sri Aurobindo also was such a social and political person, besides that ingraspable spiritual being. Sri Aurobindo, social freedom was part of the message of Buddha, Chaitanya, Nanak, and Kabir, and the saints of Maharashtra. Social freedom is not a result of social machinery, but of the freedom of the human intellect and the nobility of the human soul. So here we go. Always I will put one word, which is one of the 12 qualities of the soul around the Matrimandya in front. Here it goes, peace. Oh, dear friends, I have said all that could be said, now no more. The words and the Sakhis are all useless, washed away in the torrents of love. No more, no more. There is nothing more to say. He is this, he is that, he is solid, he moves. All these are words of ignorance. One utters them only so long as one has not seen him. O Kabir, now there is nothing but the one. So let me see how many would understand the German naturally or by having learned it. 1, 2. Okay, let's go for it. Ach, liebe Freunde, schon habe ich alles gesagt, was es zu sagen da gibt. Nichts mehr davon nun. Die Worte und Sakhis sind alle hinfällig hinweggespült von den Strömen der Liebe. Halt ein, nicht mehr, es gibt nichts weiteres zu sagen. Er ist dies, er ist das, er ist fest, er ist in Bewegung. All dies sind törichte Wörter. Nur wenn man ihn noch nicht sah, spricht man sie aus. I called it in the region, I saw it in the region of peace because it speaks for me about the peace of mind, maybe. Aspiration. So to be clear, those are not the titles that Kabir would have given them. I think there were no official titles to his Sakhis and songs, but this is what I relate to it. Not by cleverness or intellectual gymnastics does one see the face of the beloved. Oh, dear friend, this is the secret of all secrets. Only he who yearns for his love relentlessly is sought by him for his embrace. Weder durch Spitzfindigkeiten noch intellektuelle Gymnastik werden wir das Gesicht des Geliebten gewahr. O lieber Freund, dies ist die Schatzkammer aller Geheimnisse. Nur wer unablässig um seine Liebe ringt, wird schließlich von ihm in seiner Umarmung erlöst. Humility. To places of pilgrimage they all go, bathing in the dirty water and chanting the name of God. To what avail? For nothing changes in their hearts. Oh, dear friends, look how death comes and washes everyone away. Sie alle strömen zu den Pilgerorten der Welt, baden sich in dreckigem Wasser und singen Gottes Name. Zu welchem Nutzen, wenn sich doch nichts in den Herzen bewegt? Geliebte Freunde, schaut, wie der Tod kommt und einen jeden hinwegwäscht. Perseverance. O Kabir, in a dream, God and his creation seem all so fragmented. But on waking in the light of the day, one sees the unity of all things. O Kabir, gefangen im Traume, erscheinen uns Gott und all seine Werke in Stücke versprengt. Aber dann beim Wachen im Lichte des Tages sehen wir die Einheit in allen Dingen. Equality. A short stay we all have on this earth, and yet what ostentations. Oh, dear friend, on the same road we shall go and to the same end. The king, the aristocrat and the tramp. Kurz nur ist unser eins Aufenthalt hier auf der Erde. Und dann so ein Schauspiel. Sieh nur, o Freund, wie auf denselben Wegen und zum selben Ziele wir gehen. Der König, der Anwalt, der Lump. Progress, what we are here for. The waves in the ocean rise and fall, so men too die and are born again. Oh, dear friend, hail the pilgrim who goes beyond these cycles, forever to be submerged in the eternal light. Die Wellen des Meeres steigen und fallen, ganz wie die Menschen, sie sterben und werden wieder geboren. O lieber Freund, Heil wird dem Pilger zuteil, der über diese Zyklen hinausgeht, um für immer mit dem unendlichen Licht zu verschmelzen. Courage. This seeking, oh dear friend, is a stupendous task. A raging fire it is. Jump in if you wish to be baked. But if you are merely curious, this fire would destroy you. Diese Suche, o Freund, ist ein kolossales Unterfangen. Ein wütendes Feuer ist sie. Spring herein, wenn du im Feuer gebrannt werden willst. Solltest du aber nur neugierig sein, wird dieses Feuer dich restlos zerstören. Generosity. Oh, dear friend, all beings are permeated with one. By nourishing the one, all are served. When one waters the roots, all things blossom, fruit and flower alike. How true is that? O lieber Freund, alle Wesen sind von dem einen durchdrungen, den einen nährend ist allen gedient. Wenn die Wurzeln wir gießen, gedeiht alles, gleich der Frucht und der Blüte. This is one of the deepest picture in his poetry for me. When one waters the roots, all things blossom, even much later, fruit and flower alike. And the last one, with the quality of receptivity. The mirror that reflects the face of the beloved is within, yet it reveals not. Oh, dear friend, only when the heart is calm and serene and without agitation can this face be truly reflected. So it is, in Sri Aurobindo's terms, it is for me about the purification of the instrument. To be a divine instrument, we might need to purify ourselves. Der Spiegel, der das Gesicht des Geliebten zurück zu dir wirft, steht im Innern und offenbart es doch nicht. Geliebter Freund, nur wenn das Herz glasklar und ruhig, gelassen daliegt, kann dieses Gesicht wahrhaft gespiegelt werden. Only when the heart is calm and serene and without agitation can this face be truly reflected.
So now I call upon my friend Marco, who's been working on translating it in Italian.
Kabir is quite a recent discovery for me, so I'm happy to read something in Italian, translate it in Italian. I think if I had to describe what feeling it gives me is what you already said, is really showing the awareness, and as simple as it is. So I'll read it in English first and then in Italian. How a drop is submerged in the ocean, this, oh my friend, everyone understands. But how the ocean is contained in a drop, that only a rare man can comprehend. Come una goccia è parte dell'oceano, amico mio, tutti possono capirlo, ma come l'oceano può essere contenuto in una sola goccia, solo rare persone possono comprenderlo. O seeker, the presence of the divine is like grains of sugar in a pile of sand. An elephant can't pick them, but a little ant knows the way. Truth, oh my friends, is very subtle. Be humble to seek it. O tu che cerchi risposte, la presenza del divino è come granelli di zucchero in un mucchio di sabbia. Un elefante non può prenderli, ma una piccola formica, lei sì, conosce la maniera. La verità, amico mio, è molto sottile. Sii umile per trovarla. O Kabir, in this tavern there are many who have come to drink, but only those who surrendered their all will get drunk. All others will just drift along, unaware and unconscious. O Kabir, in questa taverna molti sono venuti per bere, ma soltanto chi si lascia andare del tutto si ubriacherà. Tutti gli altri rimarranno a girovagare, senza sapere e senza coscienza. To see the face of the beloved, O seeker, one must cleanse the stains of the mirror of the soul. Without it, no light enters within, and nothing is made visible. Per vedere il volto del mio amato, o tu che vuoi comprendere, uno deve pulire le macchie sullo specchio della coscienza. Senza quello, nessuna luce può penetrare e niente è reso visibile. Deep in the ocean is the pearl, there to dive if you seek. Oh dear friend, what a scared old man I was, afraid of being drowned. I just sat at the shore, empty-handed. In fondo all'oceano c'è la perla, se accetti di tuffarti per cercarla. Oh caro amico, ero davvero un vecchio pauroso. Con il timore di affogare, sono stato seduto sulla riva con le mani vuote. Oh Kabir, what a new companion I have found, who is affected neither by pain nor by pleasure. With him I shall play and dance, assured of his presence forever and ever. Oh Kabir, ho trovato un nuovo compagno che non sente né dolore né piacere. Con lui dovrei giocare e danzare, sicuro della sua presenza per sempre. And the last one. Ah, a song of love has burst forth, yet what silence has descended upon me. Like a dumb man, having tasted the sweetest of fruits, I can merely smile, but say nothing. Ah, una canzone d'amore esplosa da dentro, ma che silenzio è sceso sopra di me. Come un uomo muto che ha assaggiato il più dolce dei frutti. Posso appena sorridere, ma non ho parole.
Such a range of languages, and if anybody here who wishes to offer to translate a language we have not yet done, we'll be very happy to invite them to join us. And now I invite my dear friend Urvashi to share in German. She has been working on it for the last few days, and we were hoping that her daughter too, Anna, would come, but next time. She's also a budding poet. So, Urvashi, please come.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for these beautiful translations. I really feel with the idea of the poems from Kabir getting drunk, are we all drunk yet, And especially with the Italian, because it's not so familiar to me, but it's so beautifully sounding. It feels like the whole world is going to be drunk, with its poems and everything. I guess one point in time when I felt quite drunk was when I was traveling to Paris at the age of 14. And the city to me truly was a city of love. And I could not actually count the pairs of flirting eyes with me that had met mine. But there was a very lightness of love in the air. And I often dreamt of more lightness, more happiness, more sacredness. And that dream was actually had to do with healing. And I would just need to touch. So the dream was in such a way that I would just see myself just needing to touch, somebody that would walk past, and whatever that person would be suffering physically or emotionally or mentally would just dissolve and disappear and free. With the poems like the ones that Kabir have written, and certainly also with the poems that Sri Aurobindo has written, I feel it's so often like that with a sentence or with a phrase or even with one word, it just touches us, and in that touch, it also heals us and makes us remember our wholeness, our unity. In Kabir's poems, we are also reminded how close we are to the beloved, to this feeling of unity. As the pupil is in the eye, so too, O seeker, the beloved resides within. Yet in our folly, we wander over all the earth searching for him. The German. Genau wie die Pupille im Auge ist, so, o Suchender, wohnt der Geliebte innen. Doch in unserer Torheit wandeln wir über die ganze Erde auf der Suche nach ihm. Wherever my eyes turn, I see the light of my beloved. Oh, dear friends, when I reached out to touch it, I too became part of that light. Wo auch immer mein Augenlicht sich hinwendet, sehe ich das Licht meines Geliebten. Oh, liebe Freunde, als ich versuchte, es zu berühren, wurde auch ich ein Teil dieses Lichtes. So Kabir speaks about many things that it might take in order to be with the divine, to live with the consciousness of the beloved all the time, because he's there all the time. We just have to become conscious, just have to open to him, to that. So next to needing surrender and maybe our purity, he also speaks about the courage, as we already heard in the Italian. But just for your memory and to slowly by heart the Kabir poems. Deep in the ocean is the pearl. Dare to dive if you seek. Oh, dear friend, what a scared old woman I was, afraid of being drowned. I just sat at the shore, empty-handed. Tief im Meer ruht die Perle. Wenn du auf der Suche bist, wage es, tief einzutauchen. O lieber Freund, welch furchtsame alte Frau ich war. Aus Angst zu ertrinken, blieb ich am Ufer mit leeren Händen. And of course, Kabir also reminds us in his poems of the needed humility in order to be with the divine, to live with that divine, to live the divine life. O seeker, in the presence of the divine is like grains of sugar in a pile of sand. An elephant can't pick them, but a little ant knows the way. Truth, oh my friend, is very subtle. Be humble to seek it. O Suchender, die göttliche Gegenwart ist wie ein Zuckerkörnchen in einem Sandhaufen. Ein Elefant vermag es nicht, sie zu sammeln, doch eine winzige Ameise kennt den Weg. Wahrheit, oh meine Freunde, ist sehr subtil. Auf der Suche nach ihr, bleibt demütig. And at times it seems we also need to be reminded of the oneness, just in general. So Kabir's also helping us in that. I search for the beloved everywhere, but to no avail. Oh friend, listen, he and I are one, not two. When the ocean is submerged in the drop, who can say what is what? Ich suchte nach dem Geliebten überall, doch fand ich ihn nicht. O Freund, höre, er und ich sind eins, nicht zwei. Wenn der Ozean in einem Tropfen ist, wer kann sagen, was ist? Also, I was always impressed by the images that Kabir uses in their simplicity, actually. And in their simplicity, they're always very easy to enter our hearts. I think that's why it's so wonderful that he's actually not so educated or all that. So he often uses that image of that drop or a pearl. How a drop is submerged in the ocean. This, oh my friend, everyone understands. But how the ocean is contained in a drop, that only a rare man can comprehend. Wenn ein Tropfen im Meer verschwindet, dies, oh mein Freund, ist jedem verständlich. Wie jedoch das Meer in einem Tropfen enthalten sein kann, dies kann nur ein außergewöhnlicher Mensch verstehen. So I think we are invited that from now on we shall just always remember also the power that lies within that kind of love. For lovers of God, I search everywhere, but true lovers are rarely to be found. Oh, dear friend, when lovers gather to rejoice, all poison turns into nectar. Nach den Liebenden Gottes suche ich überall, doch wahre Liebende sind selten zu finden. O lieber Freund, wenn Liebende sich treffen zum Fest und zur Freude, verwandelt sich alles Gift in den Trunk der Unsterblichkeit.
I said to you that Kabir was completely unlettered, and he was attacked and ridiculed by the pundits, by the scholars, by the academics, that how can a man without any knowledge of the books ever speak of spiritual knowledge? So he said to them, he says, Pothi pad pad jagmua, Pothi pad pad jagmua, Pandit bhaya na koe. He says, there is many a man who's read all the books, but rarely there is a man of knowledge. There's many a man who's read all the books, but rarely is there a man of knowledge. To be a man of knowledge, you need to learn only one word, and that word is love. A very famous piece, often quoted by so many people in the country. And that's what makes Kabir so loved and celebrated after 500 years even. So he says, Pothi pad pad jagmua, Pothi pad pad jagmua, Pandit bhaya na koe. Pothi pad pad jagmua, Pandit bhaya na koe. Are dhai aakhar prem ka, padhai so pandit hoye. Padhai so pandit hoye. You need to learn only one word, and that word is love. That's why I say all his pieces are. So this one, he say, Piya chahe prem ras. You want to love, and yet you don't let your ego go. Piya chahe prem ras, rakha chahe man. Piya chahe prem ras, rakha chahe man. Ek myan mein do khadag. Are dekha suna na kaan. How can there can be two swords in one sheath? Nobody has heard such an absurd thing. So only one can. Just as earlier he said, Prema galiyati sankari, isma donaha samahi. The path of love is much too narrow. Two cannot walk here. Only one. So same thing he says, there's this, how can this, so you want love and yet you don't let your ego go. Because two swords in one sheath. You see, two swords in one sheath. Who has ever heard such an absurd thing? जिस कहता है जिन पन फूही पूरी फिरे घूमे देश विदेश पिया मिलन जब होया बांसल पिया मिलन होया आंगन भया विदेश. I wandered all over him for him, looking for him, but to no avail. When I'm in the embrace of my beloved, the whole world comes in my backyard. My own backyard becomes the whole universe. This one is very beautiful. Again, the whole notion of what is a dream, what is reality, what is illusion, and this, of course, has been haunting us for thousands of years. It still continues. What is a dream? What is real in the dream? So it says, "Sapne mein sai mile, sapne mein sai mile, sobat liya jagaye." In a dream at night, I saw the face of my beloved. And she woke me from my sleep. Which sleep? The inner sleep. Sapne mein sai mile, sobat liya jagaye. Sapne, in the middle of night, in a dream, I saw the face of my beloved. She woke me from my sleep. And now, so afraid I am to open my eyes, lest it was only a dream. Sapne mein sai mile, sobat liya jagaye. आंख ना खोलूं डर पता कहीं सपना ना हो जाए. One of the most beautiful pieces in poetry ever written, truly. I've read quite a bit of poetry from around the world. So some absolutely beautiful, so much like a mathematical equation, so much said in it. Sapne mein, in the middle of night, in a dream, I saw the face of my beloved. She woke me from my sleep. Now so afraid am I to open my eyes, lest it was only a dream. This one we quoted earlier, but it's worth remembering. Likha likhi ki hai nahi. Likha likhi ki hai nahi. Are dekha dekhi ki baat. It's not matter of learning and reading and writing. It's opening your eyes. That's the real essence of spiritual search. Likha likhi ki hai nahi. Are dekha dekhi ki baat. Dulha ko dulhin mili gayo. Phiki padi barat. When the bride is in the arms of her lover, who gives a damn about the wedding party? This is how Kabir provokes again and again. So what is real? What is the real essence? So it is the real union of the lover and the beloved. The wedding party is just for fun. There is a myth in India that when a deer has some special place that has a smell, there's kundali in his heart, and it's a beautiful fragrance, and he was wondering, where is this fragrance coming? He does not know, so he's wandering all over the place. He says, same is true of us human beings. We go to mosques, we go to temples and churches. We don't ever stop to see that the fragrance is within us. So कहता है, कभी कस्तूरी कुंडली बस है, कस्तूरी कुंडली बस है, मृग ढूंढे वन माही. The deer is wandering all over the forest in its search. कस्तूरी कुंडली बस है, मृग ढूंढे वन माही. ऐसे घट घट राम है, दुनिया देखे नाही. Dunya dekhe nahi. How ignorant we are. We keep going to the temples and places of pilgrimage, never stopping to see the fragrance that is within. So Kabir, as I said, provokes again and again. Ki jantra mantra sab jhoot hai. He says all these rituals and penances and fasting, they're lie. They're lies. They do nothing. Jantra mantra sab jhoot hai, mati bharmo sab koi. He said the truth is integral. So again, jantra mantra sab jhoot hai, mati bharmo sab koi. Sar shabd chane bina, kaga hans na hoi. The truth is integral. Without understanding the truth in its entirety, a crow does not become a swan. A crow is a symbol of cleverness. A swan is a symbol of beauty and sacredness. Say a crow does not become a swan just because you can do all the rituals. So this one, it says, "Ju nainan mein putli, ju nainan mein putli, kyun khalak ghat mahi, मूर्ख लोग न जाने, बाहिर ढूंढ न जाए." Just as the pupil is in the eye, so is the Lord within. Yet in our ignorance, we wander all over the earth in its search. Here, this again, Kabir's notion of oneness is again, recites it again. Yeh tat veh tat ek hai, ek pran dui ghat. This body, this all one. Here, your body and mine and the spirit is all spark of the one. यह तत् वह तत् एक है, एक प्राण दुई घात, अपने जिए से जानिए. If you want to know me, look within your own self. You'll see, you'll understand me. This one, again, very beautiful. It's in my balcony, painted. Kabira kuan ek hai. Oneness. Kabira, there is only one well from which we all draw the water. The water, only the vessel is different, but the water is the same. कबीरा कुआं एक है, पानी भरे अनेक. कबीरा कुआं एक है, पानी भरे अनेक, भांडे ही में भेद है, पानी सब में एक. This is the essence of Kabir's again and again. One light that permeates in all beings. Abli Allah nuro paya, kudrati ke sab bande. Kabir is very much part of the Guru Granth Sahib, of the Sikh scriptures. There are 350 of his couplets in the Guru Granth Sahib. Highly honored, respected, revered. So he says, Abli Allah nuro paya, kudrati ke sab bande, ek nur se sab jag upja, are kaun bhale aur kaun mande. From one light all has come to be. Who is good? Who is bad? These are all phantoms of your own mind. अबली अल्लाह नूरो पाया, कुदरती के सब बंदे, एक नूर से सब जगह उपजा, अरे कौन भले और कौन मंदे. So then again, कुंभ में जल है. I am like a pitcher of clay. I'm like a pot of clay. There is water inside me. There is water outside me. Floating in the great ocean of consciousness. I'm like a pitcher of clay floating in the great ocean of consciousness. There is water inside me, there's water outside me. Suddenly, with the touch of the master, this pot is broken. What is inside? What is outside? It's all one. Kumbh mein jal hai. Kumbh mein jal hai. Jal mein kumbh. Bahir bhitar pani. कुंभ में जल है, जल में कुंभ, बाहिर भीतर पानी, फुटा कुंभ, जल जल ही समाना. यह तत् कहे ज्ञानी, यह तत् कहे ज्ञानी. Kabir spoke a great deal about death and time and transience, and provoked people. He said, Manav Janam Durlabh hai. Life is a great gift. Rejoice. Don't let it go waste. Life is a great gift. So again and again, lootna hai to loot laye. Arey naam naam ki loot. Rejoice. Rejoice. लूटना है तो लूट लाए, राम नाम की लूट, फिर पाछा पछताएगा जब प्राण जाएंगे छूट. Then you will repent when the life is gone. You see, we all know that all of us die, but not all of us live. We all die in all life, but not all of us live. To learn to live is the greatest art. And that's what Kabir says again and again. Kabira lootna hai to loot laye, Ram naam ki loot, फिर पाछा पछताएगा जब प्राण जाएंगे छूट. Yeah, you say we lootna, rejoice, lootna, loot in the word lootna, ash lootna, ananda lootna. It's rejoice, and then you will repent when the life is gone, You see, he's not below on this idea of reincarnation and so. So this is real. He spoke of existential. That's why his existentialist philosophers call him, he's the greatest existential philosopher. He speaks of the life as it is, to rejoice in its fullness. Kabira lootna hai to loot le, Ram naam ki loot, phir pacha pachtaega, jab pran jayenge chut, jab pran jayenge chut. Phir kehta deh dhare ka dand hai. He says all life has an end. That is the nature of life. But a wise man looks at it and sees it as a great miracle. The other person, a fool, just repents and weeps. देह धरे का दंड है सब काहू को होए देह धरे का दंड है सब काहू को है ज्ञानी सूझे ज्ञान से मूर्ख सूझे बो रोए. A foolish man just repents and sighs. Then you see, Kabir was, as I said, low caste, marginalized, left out completely, laughed at, and treated very badly. And sometimes they say he was tortured because of his provocation. So he says, Jati na pucho sadhu ki, don't ask the caste of the person. He says, this is stupidity. No caste. Jati na pucho sadhu ki, puch lijiye gyan. Arey, don't, he says, ask what knowledge you have. You don't ask the caste of the sadhu, the seeker. Ask what knowledge he has. Mol karo talwar ka, pada rehne do myan. He says, find out how sharp the sword is, not what sheath it is contained in. That's the sharpness of the sword, not what kind of container. We are containers. So he says, mol karo talwar ka. Jati na pucho sadhu ki, puch lijiye gyan. Arey, mol karo talwar ka, pada rehne do myan. Forget the sheath. See how sharp the sword is. Though again he says, Hindu to main hu nahi. So people asked him, are you Hindu or a Muslim? Who are you? What the hell? You see, it is said about him that he was tortured by both of them during his lifetime. But towards the end of his life, he was honored. And the legend has it, that when he died, both of them, Hindus and Muslims, fighting over the body. Muslims, as you know, bury their dead. And Hindus, as you know, cremate their dead. So they wanted to have their last rituals according to their customs. So the legend has it. So when they removed the shroud, there was no body. Only a heap of flowers. So they divided the flowers. So if you go to Varanasi, there are two places. One by the Muslims, one the Hindus. The Hindus said that's where he was cremated. And the Muslims said that's where he was buried. So he says, then he himself says, Hindu to main hu nahi. I'm not a Hindu. I'm not a Muslim. Hindu to main hu nahi. Musalman bhi nahi. Hindu to main hu nahi. Musalman bhi nahi. Panch tattva ka putla. I'm made of 5 elements, and the whole universe plays its drama in the spirit and this flesh. Hindu to main hu nahi, Musalman bhi nahi, panch tattva ka putla, khelat mahi. And then again, because he so much saw that caste system and the untouchability 500 years ago. So ek boond, ek malmutra, he says from one drop, same spirit, same light, same thing you're made. Ek boond, ek malmutra, ek cham, ek guda. He says same flesh, same light, same everything. Ek jyot se sab jag upja. From same light, all has come to be. Who's a Brahmin? Who's a Shudra? Who's an untouchable? These are all illusions of your own mind. Daring to say 500 years ago. Difficult to believe. Because this is, and that's why today he's honored, loved, respected for being a man who spoke of unity and oneness beyond any caste and creed, beyond any religion, beyond any rituals. This one is very beautiful. Karmeto mala phira. He says, look, beads in your hand. The beads move in your hand. The tongue moves in your mouth. He said, the beads move in your hand, the tongue moves in your mouth, your mind wanders all over the earth. Oh, my friend, don't fool yourself. This is not meditation. So don't fool yourself. Karmeto mala phira. जीभ फिरै मुख माही कर मैं तो माला फिरै जीभ फिरै मुख माही मनवा तो चहुं दिशी फिरै अरे यह तो सुमन नाही यह तो this is no way to remember the beloved कर मैं तो माला फिरै जीभ फिरै मुख माही मनवा तो चहुं दिशी फिरै अरे यह तो सुमन नाही यह तो सुमन नाही so he provoked again. He says, "Bada hua to kya hua?" Kabir is quoted as a great ethical giver, ethics. The people quote him in all kinds of situations. Bada hua to kya? What's the point of being big if you serve no useful purpose? Look at a date tree, how tall it is and how far the fruit is. And it gives no shelter to the weary traveler. बड़ा हुआ तो क्या हुआ जैसे पेड़ खंजूर पंथी को छाया नहीं फल लागे अति दूर फल the fruit is so far away. What point is this? This one, 2 or 3 I'll share with him because he provoked the Hindus and the Muslims, the Orthodoxy. He says, Munda mundai hari mila. You see a lot of people in Varanasi, a lot of Hindus, they grow beards like me and then they shave their head. So he made fun of them. He says, Munda mundai hari mila. If by shaving your head you could see the face of the Lord, how easy it would be. How easy. If by shaving your head you could see the face of the beloved, how easy it would be. Look at a sheep. How often it is shorn and how far from heaven it is. Mund mundaye hari milay, to sab koi le mundaye. Mund mundaye hari milay, to sab koi le mundaye. Bar bar ke mundte, are bhed na bekunt jaye. Bhed na bekunt jaye. Very beautiful, often quoted. And then he says, again, he sees lots of crowds, people follow somebody. He says, Phuti aankh vivek ki, lakhana sant sant. Look, what a mire the world is lost in. It does not know a saint from a charlatan. Just because you have gathered a group of followers, does that make you a holy man? Because you see a lot of people gather around. He says, Phuti aankh vivek ki, lakhana sant sant, jaake sang das vis hai, tako naam mahant. He says, a crowd follows, so you become a sant. You became a saint. You see, so he made fun of it. Here, this one is against Muslims, and just 2 more, and we'll finish it. Kankar pathar jodi ke, masjid lai chunaye. He says, look at it. They piled stones and sand and made into a mosque. And there on top, the mullah shouts the name of God. Do you think God is deaf? Why do you have to shout? He says this to the Muslims. He says, Kankar pathar jodi ke, masjid lai chunaye, ta chadhiya mullah bang de, kya behra hua khudaye? Is God deaf? Why do you have to shout? So, Kankar pathar jodi ke, masjid lai chunaye, ta chadhiya mullah bang de, kya behra hua khudaye? This one is again very beautiful. It's a tribute to the Guru, teacher. Guru kumhar shish kumbh hai. Guru is like a potter, and the student is like a pot. See, a guru is like a potter, and a student is like a pot. See how he beats from the outside, but he sports from the inside, so a beautiful pot can be created. Guru kumhar shish kumbh hai. Gadi gadi kaadhe khot. Guru kumhar shish kumbh hai, gadi gadi kaadhe khot, antar haath sahar de, bahir mare chot. See, a beautiful pot can be created. This one, I will just finish it because we said it earlier, but let me, it's 3 pieces. They go together. Urvashi said it, but let me share it, the original. Heret, he Sakhi. There are 3 of them together. He says, I looked for him everywhere, but I found him nowhere. Why? Because when a drop becomes part of the ocean, who can say what is what? The drop becomes part of the ocean. Then he says the second time, oh, I looked for him everywhere, but we two are same. Why? Because when the ocean becomes part of the drop, who can say what is what? And then the third one, he says, when a drop becomes part of the ocean, everybody understands. But how the ocean becomes part of the drop, that only a rare man can comprehend. So three of them together, very beautiful. Herat, 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 he sakhi, raha kabir herai. Har gaya, I'm tired of watching. He said, herat, herat, he sakhi, raha kabir herai, boond samani samad mein, ab kat heri jai. The drop is submerged in the ocean. Who can say what is what? So then, herat, herat, he sakhi, raha kabir herai, samad samana boond mein, ab kat heri jai. Now the ocean is contained in the drop. Who can say what is what? And then he says third time, he said, boond samana samad mein. Are jana hai sab koi. How a drop becomes part of the ocean, everybody understands. But how ocean becomes part of the drop, that only a rare man can comprehend. Herat, herat, he sakhi. Here, how बूंद समाना समद में जाना है सब कोई समद समाना बूंद में अरे बूझे बिरला कोई बूझे बिरला कोई बूझे बिरला कोई. The title of my next book on Kabir is called Ocean in a Drop. That title. And we see this line of William Blake, the great 18th century British mystic, to see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a flower. To see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a flower. To hold eternity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. So this is a mystical thought, mystical visions you see all around the world. I've spoken in other occasions how same kind of poetry, mystical poetry, whether it's in Russian or English or American or Spanish, it's so much is common. So thank you so much for your presence.